Do you think the greatest football coach of all time is deserving of a serious examination that will also make you uncomfortable when you see his man boobs? These are the questions I present to modern journalism.
Pablo, thanks for doing this.
David, good to talk to you, man. Happy to.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Can we start from the beginning? You grew up in New York, right?
Yes, in Manhattan. I'm a city kid, a thing that now sounds so much tougher when I say it as an adult than it felt at the time. I was naive. Are we here to talk Rudy Giuliani? Is that what we're doing here, David?
I mean, sure. I mean, if you want to bring up Giuliani, I'm here for it. I was more interested in your New York, but if you want to talk about Giuliani's New York.
No, well, I grew up in it. I mean, it was. I grew up in Murray Hill in Manhattan, which used to be a place where consultants did not go to vomit recreationally. Right. Now it is exactly that. And first one in my family born in the United States, born and raised in New York City, parents from the Philippines. And my New York is that version of New York that I am ever nostalgic for, a place where everything felt comically diversified, the multicultural experiment in which the allegiance that I clung to most sincerely, tribally, was the New York Yankees. So that was me.
So you were a Yankees fan from birth.
I mean, all those trophies. How does one not get radicalized, David?
That's probably true. Yeah, no, that's really true. Pittsburgh Pirates fans like me really appreciate that kind of chatter.
That's right.
So what's your first sports memory?
Oh wow, going to the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. I remember I was looking at this the other day because my mom saves all of my stuff, which is horrifying. But as a matter of like a little notebook that I found when I used to just like write down statistics and rosters as if I was, on the bench, like as an assistant coach or something. And then, by the way, side memory, the more conventional, like Proustian sort of memory is going up the ramp at Yankee Stadium and seeing the expanse of Greene and being intoxicated by the fact that, wait a minute, this is a thing that exists in real life. You never forget that. So those are the two things I think of.
And then, so we share something else in common, which is going to the same college and writing for the same college newspaper, the Harvard Crimson. And I don't know, I have to say, like, I don't know the right words to use, but I feel like there was something about that place and writing and the craft of writing that made me who I am as a journalist in a lot of ways. Do you feel the same way?
The word you're looking for is insufferable.
That is accurate. Yeah, like
but
sleepless.
But so sincerely cosplaying the New York Times
yes.
is the shorthand. Like a bunch of kids who were going to take this as seriously as anyone at Harvard was doing anything.
Yeah, you're talking to someone who covered like the New Hampshire primary as a sophomore in college, but I felt like dude, I can compete with the New York Times and the Washington Post. Like I'm from the Harvard Crimson. Like, but it was laughable.
I remember I got press passes to go to like Celtics games. I was like, I was probably doing too much just as a matter of like, I deserve to be with the actual adults. But it's an extracurricular activity, of course, that became your main thing. I didn't do journalism before getting to college. In high school, I kind of wrote for the school paper, but didn't really mean anything. To me, apologies to the Owl, a fine institution in its own right at Regis High School. But the Crimson is where you realize there can be a pre-professionalism that attends all these meetings, and you see the coaching tree, as it were. I remember showing up and being like, oh, wow, this is not merely playing pretend New York Times. This is kind of a feeder system to real newspapers and real radio stations and real outlets, Sports Illustrated, where I ended up going, being one of them. And that was intoxicating. My first assignment, I remember, or at least the thing that, again, sticks out of my memory is I was assigned a story on the heavyweight crew team. And the rowing team at Harvard, again, I'm from New York City, did not know what crew was, had never seen whatever those vessels
Right.
on the Charles River, only to discover that I was suddenly covering what is in my now editorial record, the greatest college rowing team of all time, apparently, the heavyweights at Harvard, who would dominate globally and filled various Olympic rosters, and also involved a memorable first interview for me, and I apologize to which one it is, but it was either Cameron or Tyler Winklevoss.
The Facebook guys?
The Facebook guys, like some of the first calls I made was to, I forget which one, but yes, one of the great rowers in college rowing history is that pair of identical 6'7" or whatever it is, Olympians.
Who would eventually get screwed by Mark Zuckerberg, but like that you didn't know that when you were interviewing him about crew.
Oh, I was just comparing them to various members of the NBA draft. All I could do was just like, in terms of like the bad writing I was doing, it would be like, remember that draft where like Allen Iverson and Kevin Garnett and Steve Nash and all those guys went in the same year? That's what this crew team is. And I tried to just like translate it into my sports fan language, and going back, I cringe so hard my body turns inside out, because I'm comparing Allen Iverson to the Winklevi, which is a thing I think literally no one should ever do. And that's,
but maybe they were the Allen Iversons of crew. Like, I mean, that was, you're right, it was a big deal. But also you were feeling pressure to go to law school, right?
Yes. Turns out that my career...
I just brought up a difficult memory.
Well, mom and dad covering field hockey does not necessarily resemble the dream they had for me when they came to this country. And my parents are physicians. They came from the Philippines. They worked at NYU Hospital. My dad worked at the VA and Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan for, 30, 40 years in the end. And so the thing I came into college aspiring to do pre-professionally was go to law school, because, David, that's what you do when you're a person who is, quote unquote, interested in the humanities, but also, quote unquote, wants to make money.
Right.
And so I was in the debate team in high school, and this was always kind of like the path I was going to follow, of respectability and predictability and structure, as opposed to whimsy and chaos and field hockey. So
but then you took the LSAT, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't diagnosed as a panic attack at the time. It certainly feels that way when I think about it in retrospect. If you came to visit me in a library, which is where I was the summer before I took the LSAT, my junior year, you could have presented me with a genie in a lamp, and I would have used one of the wishes on like a perfect LSAT score.
Yeah,
it was that level of myopia and short-sightedness around what was really important. Spoiler alert, but that's how much I cared about it. Effectively had a panic attack. Resolved to take the LSAT again, and did a second time, but in between realized I should probably take like a gap year, because this isn't going great for me. But I was supposed to be a lawyer and, do important things. That would be my aspiration. Yeah.
This is my moment of full disclosure. This is where our paths diverge, and I think you made the wise decision. I mean, I went on to be a news journalist and cover politics and hosted Morning Edition at NPR and had a great few decades. Totally had a great few decades, but I look at people like you, I look at like your friend Mina Kimes and what you're doing now in the sports world. Like, I am a diehard sports fan who's like, God, I wish I could have applied whatever the hell these skills are to sports, and you've done it so masterfully. And there's some envy there. I have to admit, there is some envy. So whatever choices you made after having the panic attack in law school, you did the right thing.
But the reason why I so appreciate that is that now in my retelling of this, I can opt in to having more of a risk-seeking bravery. Yeah. Really, it's because I've bombed a test. Failure, in my view, is what shunted me into a pathway towards what I can only describe as an unexpected passion project and subsequently quality of life that I did not want. That wasn't one of the wishes I used in my hypothetical genie story. I never would have thought that. And because it didn't go great, I was forced to be creative and actually ask myself for a year, and it's just a year, what do I want to do? And I chose to be a fact checker at Sports Illustrated, and chose to applied for, having been for fun again, an intern writing articles for the website one summer, that I thought was just like the stuff I did for fun, because the Crimson was a thing that I cared about deeply, but never gave myself the permission to consider as like a real full-time job. Like I was always like, anyway, and look, the thing about what I see behind your right ear, that terrible towel, so much sweat. I sweated so much about like, what am I doing here? I was constantly like Patrick Ewing, Big East level sweat. Like I was not confident in what this path was going to be. And now, in retrospect, I thank God every day that I bombed the LSAT.
Tell me, talk me out of the gap year. Like you get into Sports Illustrated, and what is one moment where you felt that, like at least started to feel it? Like, God, I'm really happy I didn't go that law school route, writing about sports, covering sports. This is the world I want to be in.
So one of the first stories I successfully pitched at Sports Illustrated, and again, I was, to use the word, insufferable, I must imagine, as like a young reporter who's in these meetings, like I'm here to check facts. I'm also here to pitch stories and like write. That's really what I wanted to figure out if I could do. And immediately I pitched a story on Manny Pacquiao. So parents from the Philippines, of course. So I had some insight into his character. And I mean that as a character, like this very impressive Filipino boxer who was climbing weight classes and came from poverty and was now this wildly exciting boxer who had a nickname which is ridiculous but it's very boxing. His nickname was the Mexicutioner, because he would defeat the great fighters from Mexico, all of whom, by the way, through line of violence, are known for just all-out offense. And so the entertainment value of Pacquiao was also part of his appeal, was just like, he's so fun to watch. He does not seem to care about defense so much. And so he goes up against great Mexican fighters, and that's part of his legend building, but he's Filipino. And so I pitched this story, and I go, and let me tell you, man, when your friends are 1Ls at very respectable law schools that you once fetishized, and you meet up for like dinner one weekend and you're trading stories about what it was like for you that week, and they come back with torts, and I come back with I was embedded with a boxer in training camp, and I'm basically living my version of Almost Famous, where I'm like embedded in this entourage and I'm seeing this it's boxing, man. It's the sport where, as money has flooded into sports, boxing has always felt this compulsive need to sell itself, which means let whoever come on in. Whatever you want to write about, you want to see us do whatever, stick around. They're just there to promote.
The violence, the characters, the crowd,
the parties,
the whole scene, Vegas, the parties.
Yes, Vegas being the vector, the Vegas being the place where these things happen. So I was telling stories about that, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. From a pure just like story for story thing, I feel like I'm onto something. This is, at the very least, is more fun to talk about, and my friends seem to be jealous of what I get to do while they're like, again, still studying for stuff. Yeah, and that was a big torts, man. Torts.
Who doesn't want to dig into torts? Okay, so you make your way to ESPN and you actually start getting on television. Like, pardon the interruption. What is the reaction you're getting from ESPN audiences as, a young, smart journalist who's, suddenly popping up?
Why is this Chinese man with a Mexican name on television was a big bit of feedback on the internet. People didn't quite know what a Filipino is, which was very funny to me because they're kind of accidentally reverse engineering colonialism in that very kind of intuitive question. Why
Yeah.
is there this Spanish thing with this Asian guy? Well, I have questions and answers for you if you want to continue the conversation. But it was also the thing of, I remember being at a party, and this was very early on in my career at ESPN, and I had just gotten hired, and I said, "Oh, I'm just starting work at ESPN," and ESPN hired me in 2012, in October of 2012, and the response from a friend of a friend at this barbecue was, "Oh, to do tech support." Like not, but like totally guilelessly, like not
No.
trying to shame me, just like
Yeah.
just like earnestly being like, oh, obviously, right. So you're like working on the technology, the IT stuff,
God.
and I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not exactly.
not exactly. So there was just some of the ESPN being inside of the television, which I also watched growing up, of course, as sports fans do, especially in our era, the cable television era.
I remember that.
It was God, I miss it.
I
Despite
do
all
too.
the stories I'm currently telling, I miss it vehemently. It's a bunch of people that made me realize that whatever I am is also an avatar for something else. And so that was immediately just like, oh wait, I'm something they haven't necessarily seen before, for reasons that are sad, but also are an opportunity in terms of people might remember this guy they saw that one time, and they might, ask follow-up questions, which I found useful.
What were you looking for at that point, like in terms of personal fulfillment?
I think I was looking to make money. I remember coming from the world of writing and not realizing that TV people made so much more money. That was kind
Hard
of
truth.
mind-blowing. And again, I miss the cable television bundle, David. I miss it. But
I'm with you.
So there was just like I got a sense of just like how the media economy actually functioned at that time, and that was very crazy to me. But then in a more substantive way, what I was trying to do was prove that I could be a voice that mattered. I'm sort of like in the job I had at ESPN from the start was basically like, hey, can you fill in on every possible show when someone's on vacation? I sort of gradually earned the trust to be a fill-in. I kind of got a PhD I was there full time for a dozen plus years. I kind of got a PhD in substitute hosting.
But then you land in your own thing. I mean, and I remember when you became host of ESPN Daily. And again, another moment of envy because I'm sitting there covering news every morning. But that felt like, I mean, based on everything you're saying, like sort of the dream job.
I didn't see it in those terms at the beginning. So what happened was I was co-hosting a show called High Noon on television that existed for 2 years, and the show got canceled. And simultaneously, because the universe works in mysterious ways, my friend Mina Kimes, who you mentioned before, she was transitioning to be a full-time NFL analyst. She had previously been hosting ESPN Daily, which was ESPN's, spoiler alert, answer to The Daily at the New York Times. And I came in like grateful to have a job, a full-time job again.
Then you break out and you're doing your own thing now. Pablo Torre Finds Out, which really just, I mean, lets you follow your curiosity, and it's an amazing show. But I guess before we dive in, like what were you missing on that ESPN show? Like you spent a lot of time talking to other journalists, designing, as you described it, like this beautiful approach with conversation and scoring and tape. And I feel like sports is the perfect place for that kind of approach because the stories are so rich. But what was missing? What weren't you getting?
Yeah, so just briefly mentioned it, like why is sports great for this is because, and I think about this all the time in sports, like the stakes are almost immediately persuasive.
Yeah.
Sort of like the drama, like the question of like when you score something, it's like, well, it's going to feel like too much. If you buy that the people care about this as a matter of like almost life and death, the stakes for all of these stories can sort of exist on a higher level of urgency, which is why I kind of love the drama of sports intuitively.
But like NFL films, they could be covering some like meaningless game between 2, 3, and 11 teams late in the season, and I would just be like crying, like literally crying about some 3rd and 13 play because the music is underneath it and the voice,
the narration. John Facenda, just like, the autumn wind is a raider, just like all that, just like, oh my God, like, yes, that's cinematic. It had an obviously cinematic aspect. But what I wasn't getting to do was direct the film. When you're around so much reporting, I think the instinct becomes, I want to do some of this myself. And so I would occasionally do episodes. I'd squeeze in episodes where like, I'm going to do the interviews, but they were so few and far between, and invariably my favorite ones to do, which speaks to, again, some solipsism, I'm sure, but also just this desire to like really get my hands into every part of this, because that was, I think, just very, very energizing.
We used to have a line at Morning Edition, which an executive producer used, which was, we're all about wonk and whimsy, which I loved. And I feel like that's the same sort of ethos. But why is that important? I mean, the combination of serious and stupidity.
So coming from sports and coming from my sort of like habituation to sports talk, in which I'm coming in as like effectively the nerd. The young Sheldon of ESPN is the most self-loathing insecurity that I had when I was 22. You sort of need to establish your credibility that you're here to have fun. You're here to entertain. Like, you're not here to be the turd in the punch bowl. You're not here to just serve broccoli to people. That's a dangerous niche to have in sports, which is, of course, the toy department, which is why you, David, of course, never dared to fully commit to it.
Ever.
It's because it's for children. And so, allegedly. And so, to me, like, part of what this show is supposed to be is, wonk and whimsy. I think it's exactly what I think I am going for here. And really, it's to melt the cheese on your broccoli. I'm still going to do the substance.
Right,
I'm going to hopefully...
You're getting the greens.
You're getting some nutrition, man. I can't help that part. That's just what there's a wonk that is going to really unapologetically reveal itself to you. But if you can, by that point, be so, I don't know, surprised by how fun it also is, then now I'm sort of scratching all the parts of my cortex, like I'm lighting up all these parts as opposed to just like trying to be one thing or the other.
But I mean, you have now established yourself as one of, if not, I mean, the most influential investigative journalist in the sports world recently. I mean, I think about your LA Clippers stories and, reporting that they used an endorsement arrangement to circumvent the salary cap in the NBA. You're dealing with like one of the richest men on earth, and Steve Ballmer, the owner, and
Harvard guy, David.
Harvard guy, Kawhi Leonard, one of the biggest stars in the NBA right now, and you take them on, like, and you expose something important, and the NBA is now investigating. Like, what's the role of fun and stupidity when you are telling such really important, groundbreaking stories?
I appreciate you framing it that way. This is a story fundamentally that on paper can seem like just broccoli. It's a company that was founded by some Harvard nerds that was fighting climate change. That's the story of Aspiration, the company that signed Kawhi Leonard to the no-show deal. That was, in totality, this $28 million no-show endorsement contract plus a $20 million equity deal. So $48 million in totality. On the other side, there is a former CEO of Microsoft who comes in wanting to do things as precisely as measure the distances between the toilets in the new building he's created. There is wonk all over his approach to how he wants to run the LA Clippers. There is, in Kawhi Leonard, and the cardinal sin that has allegedly, according to my reporting, been broken, salary cap circumvention, which is a rule in a collective bargaining agreement, a function of labor law, in which in a 500-page document, there's a very important section in which you can't pay your athletes more than has been agreed upon as a matter of your players' union and your league. And so at that point, as I go through this, if you're already asleep, like I get it. Like I'm talking about like legal texts and carbon credits and tech company business practices and all of that stuff. And yet the story to me is so funny. And I don't want to apologize for how unbelievably funny and stupid and smart and serious it all is.
All
I mean,
once.
the idea, David, of a no-show job, but the job is to endorse something, is just like, I say this sometimes,
That's a good point.
It's very rare as an investigative journalist that you come upon a story where the absence of evidence can actually be the evidence.
Yeah.
Like the job was meant to endorse this company, Aspiration, but they never announced the endorsement deal. He never did a single thing that anyone has found.
What are you paying for? Exactly.
What are you? It's just a very easy question inside of this nesting doll of complicated questions, and the fact that he couldn't bring himself to do anything is like, yes, how is it an can it be an endorsement deal if you never announce it? It's almost like this philosophical question of like, what does it mean to market something? And I think the answer is obvious, according to my reporting. And so you go down the rabbit hole on that, and it's just a series of extreme characters behaving in ways that, again, are quite cinematic and I think persuasively obsessive. Like they really care. And if you convey that care as well as that incompetence, it's like, well, there's a little Coen Brothers in that. There's a little, pick your favorite like part, highbrow farce is kind of how I think about it sometimes. And I love that.
But who are you? Like I think about the great investigative journalist who would talk about like who they're fighting for and what they're fighting for. It's like, you're exposing corruption. You're exposing corruption in politics. At the end of the day, you're fighting for people who are taken advantage of, the voiceless. Like when it comes to investigative work in sports, like who do you think about? Who are you doing this for?
I think about the public interest. And that is a loaded term that we can spend 3 hours also debating. But my view is that sports are important. And it's not just because I want to justify it to my parents, although there is some of that. It's also because it's just one of the few cultural institutions that people care about anymore. And certainly one of the few institutions, if the only one, in which people from different political perspectives will gather to root for the Steelers or for the Yankees. They may not listen to the same music or vote the same way or exist in the same geographic location or be of the same age or economic strata, but they might care about sports. And so to me, sports as the giant town hall that might be the only town hall we really plausibly have left where people are going to gather with those they disagree, it ends up being a place where you could really get to the bottom of some of those vegetables. And the public interest here, I mean, it's interesting. I'm always trying to calibrate, like, how much do I want to make this a case based on the vegetables versus just the unapologetic, I do this because I think it's entertaining. I think part of me just wants to do the second thing and just say, I do this, I investigate stories because I think they're really worthwhile stories, period. But the more I think about sports as it fits into American culture, I mean, frankly, the Kawhi Leonard story has been this case study in a way in which one of the richest men on the planet, the richest owner in all of sports in the world, may plausibly be held to some account in a way that he cannot be, frankly, in the rest of American life, in the life that he leads. Somehow, this stupid non-law that is a real cardinal rule in sports about salary cap circumvention brings a scrutiny to a 150 billionaire that actually provides an accountability that he does not have to feel otherwise. And the reason he feels it is because sports are important to him And because he knows how much more popular sports is broadly to the public and the public interest than even Microsoft was.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I mean, and again, some of this we can wish for people to care more about, frankly, the down the middle, straight political stories that are actually unambiguously important and civically relevant. If I have to come through the toy department, though, to make it feel like maybe there's something resembling accountability for the richest people on our planet who have all gravitated to sports for the reasons that also are explaining why we're in this point in time, I just think that's a unique vantage point that I don't want to surrender.
Can we finish by talking about a reporting trip that you did to Winthrop, Massachusetts earlier this year? So
I would please.
Bill Belichick, as we all know, football coach at the University of North Carolina, and he won like maybe a Super Bowl or two for the New England Patriots.
But who's counting? Yeah.
Yeah, not me. They still don't have more than the Steelers, but anyway. So he's caught on a Ring camera that the world sees, shirtless, which is highly disturbing, like top on the list of things I never wanted to see in my life. But he was there with a woman, leaving at like 6 a.m. without a shirt on and carrying like a man purse. Can you fill in the blank? Fill in the blanks for me. What did we all see that horrified so many of us?
We saw we saw in miniature a vast, absurd story that I have been investigating, in which we are getting the most shockingly personal view of the most deliberately impersonal man to straddle the most important sport in America. So Bill Belichick, look, man, some of it's just like, again, in sports, you can really think of archetypes. And we are helped by the fact that Belichick, as you as a Steeler fan knows, he was America's withholding father. He was the guy who didn't want to ever tell you, good job. He was the guy who actually said, do your job, as a matter of his personal...
Cheat. And quietly cheat a lot.
And absolutely, engineer vast spy operations, right. As well as football deflation operations, one might allege. But his whole thing was, I'm going to be, and he was, the greatest football coach of all time. And the way he did it was through this unbelievable discipline, discretion, privacy, and aggressive boringness.
Right.
Him at a press conference was
painful.
Oh my God, is incomparably painful.
Yeah.
To the point of like almost like fetishistic. Like at a certain point, the press was sort of like, they knew what they were going to get. And the question was, could you enjoy it? And over time,
he was enjoying it. I think he loved being that
power.
Jerk. Yeah.
Power to be that powerful and untouchable, despite all the things that you just alluded to, is a rare thing. He is the best coach, the greatest defensive mind in American football history, is the fair biography to give him. And so when this same guy pops up, Zaftig, shirtless, bountiful, in terms of the invasive view.
I don't want to think of him as bountiful. I don't want, but please.
But you know it to be true, David.
Yes, and dating Jordon Hudson, who's like a woman far below his age.
And look, I'm speaking of kinks, I'm not here to yuck Bill Belichick's yum. He's a free-thinking adult man, and Jordon Hudson, who is now 24 at last check. This is maybe a 50-year or so age gap, give or take.
Who's judging? Nobody.
Fire con Dios.
Right.
But as some on Twitter would accuse me of thinking in my Spanish-speaking brain, I would simply say that Bill Belichick and Jordon Hudson, what they resemble is one of the great character developments in American life Bill Belichick went from the guy we just talked about to this guy who wanted to be a podcaster, appear in media, a guy who was suddenly here on Instagram doing yoga poses with Jordon Hudson, his girlfriend. He was dressed as a fisherman, catching her on his rod, and she was a mermaid. I can't overstate how unlike this was to the old Bill Belichick. And simultaneous to this, the last bit of texture, I guess, is, and there's so much available, is just that he became the head coach of the University of North Carolina. He became the highest paid public employee in the state of North Carolina. And he becomes a college coach. And wouldn't you know it, this girlfriend, who is not merely a girlfriend, but the acting, not just COO of this production company that they made together.
Chief of really, staff, chief content advisor.
Ideas Mill and Ideas Muse.
Yeah.
As the book he wrote listed her. She
Maybe
was
assistant
his PR
football
person.
coach too.
She's been on the sidelines. She's been on the sidelines in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She's doing everything in a way that is so precocious, ambitious, impressive. But things simultaneously as she rises to power, and she's the one, by the way, negotiating with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, according to my reporting, to get Belichick into the Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl ad alongside her, which she also negotiated. All of which is to say that she's really good at attracting the very thing that Belichick fought, which was attention and scrutiny. She seems to be, if nothing else, an all-timer at that. And the problem has been that when you look closer and closer at it, you find the ridiculous and the absurd and, frankly, a degree of dishonesty that is unsurprising if you've seen Belichick in action at the Patriots, but does resemble something of a through line in terms of how is this guy so different and yet also kind of the same.
But that was some of what you're saying. That's the broccoli. Like, he's still coaching at a major college program. I mean, there's like money being exchanged, contracts being signed, getting his girlfriend into Super Bowl ads. Like, if you're a North Carolina football fan, if you're a New England Patriots fan, if you're just a football fan, if you're just a sports fan, this guy's been important for years. And it's like, we deserve to know the truth.
Do you think the greatest football coach of all time is deserving of a serious examination that will also make you uncomfortable when you see his man boobs? These are the questions I present to modern journalism.
Was this story made for you? Like, I mean, was this, I mean, it literally checks boxes that you probably didn't even know you needed to check.
Sometimes, truly sometimes in this line of work in which there just seems to be a wide open lane for this genre for reasons that, again, are a function of how the media economy developed and what people did not want to end up doing and how hard it is to do this stuff and all of that and why you need like a staff of people. You can't just do it alone. You need like a whole enterprise. I get why this is a race very few other people are running. But my God, it's just such a fertile territory. It's such a fertile beat to be the guy who's like, is there serious and is there stupid and can that be investigated in sports? It's so fundamental, David, as you know, as a sports fan. It's fundamental to sports itself. The idea that you care so much that there are real people who are involved in this, and oftentimes there is a gross incompetence that is gross in the sense of shirtlessness and gross in the sense of, wow, that's a lot of money that's changing hands right now.
But you rented the Airbnb where the two of them were staying. Like, what was, tell me why that was an important component of your reporting on the life of Bill Belichick.
So the ring cam video for I'm lost in the sauce sometimes. Thank you for bringing me back to like, oh, right.
No, I wasn't going to let you go without bringing up the fact that you rented the Airbnb that Bill Belichick stayed in.
So the reporting around what is this ring camera video? I mean, really, it came to the fore because on Netflix Live, in the roast of Tom Brady, at the end of the roast, Tom Brady gets to go behind the dais, go behind the podium on the dais, and he gets to hit back at everybody. And Belichick's on stage, along with the rest of the New England Patriots and many comedians and various other dignitaries of culture. And Tom Brady says, the question I used to get that I always had an answer for was, what's your favorite ring? And I used to say, the next one. Now I say, and this is me paraphrasing the joke. Now I say, it's that camera that caught Bill coming out of that poor girl's home. And I'm like, okay. Wow. So this is in front of millions of people with Belichick on stage, and he's kind of like uncomfortably laughing, ha ha ha. And then I look up just the reporting around this, and the reporting had been, this is Bill Belichick leaving Jordon Hudson's house. And
the investigative journalist in you has been activated.
I'm a fact checker. I'm nothing if not a fact checker. And I'm like, really? Because, by the way, if I can find where that house is, maybe there are just other bits of context surrounding this whole story. Like, that's a development. Belichick was staying there when? This was happening in 2023? Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. And the more I look into it, the more it becomes clear that it's not Jordon Hudson's house. It's an Airbnb.
Boom.
I booked it and I showed up, and suddenly I'm standing on the same porch. The follow-up question as I'm standing on the porch with the Ring camera on it is, who's on the other side of that Ring cam? And down the stairs come the owners of the Airbnb, who agree to talk to me without showing their faces, so it's just tape. And we don't name them, and we're careful to protect their identity otherwise. But what is so undeniable is the deep Boston accent, and the fact that the husband in this pair is a Patriots fan.
Amazing.
And to hear his point of view, like one day this 20-something young woman shows up, and under cover of darkness, suddenly she is joined by some man that they don't really know and can't make out because it's dark. And then in the pre-dawn hours of the following morning, out of their home, they live above this. They live on the top floor. Out from beneath them wanders a shirtless Bill Belichick. Is just one of the funniest mental images I think a person can have.
It really is. Last question. What story are you most excited to tell and apply this wonderful approach to now?
Gosh, one of the struggles when I launched PTFO was, are we going to have enough stories? People were asking, are you going to run out of stuff to find out about? And the joy of doing this has been, the more stuff that I find out, the more people want to tell me about stuff they think I should find out. And so I want to get to some other stuff. I really do have again, now that I'm in control of my docket, in the way that I couldn't be at ESPN, I have so many long range projects that are box checking in the way that you put it before. The very thing I just said earlier, I thanked God for, that I have a job that allows me to do stuff like this. And now I'm again being confronted with the question of, how much do you really, 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 really want to be thinking about a story that is both serious but also phenomenally stupid? And my mileage may evolve, but I'm here for it in the meantime.
Well, I am too. I love broccoli with cheese. I'm not going to lie. Big fan.
My daughter, my 5-year-old has been the focus group for that metaphor. So I'm glad it's resonating.
I love it. It resonates. Pablo, this was really fun. I really appreciate it.
David, anytime you want to contemplate the life that you could have led, just know that it's pretty weird, man. It's pretty weird.